Good. Good morning, Labor Health Social Services. Today is February 21st, Wednesday. We are going in at 9:30 to the floor. I've talked to the speaker, and so we'll actually go until 9:45. But if anybody does need to be there for the prayer pledge, they'll hold open the roll until 9:45. So we do have about 45 minutes this morning to get through our two bills. With that, let's start with calling the roll, and then I'll give you some more information as we get started.
Representative Chadwick?
Here.
Representative Clauston?
Here.
Representative Hornock?
Here.
Representative O'Hearn?
Here.
Representative Penn? Excused.
Excused.
Representative Trujillo?
Here.
Representative Ward?
Here.
Representative Yin?
Here.
Chairman Zwanitzer?
Here.
Thank you.
Committee, first up, we're going to do House Bill 48, renaming one of our accounts. We do have some people here to testify from the deaf community as well. So Ms. Bell is joining us. We have given her permission to be in the camera. So if one of you is asking a question, just expect her behind you signing. Just so you know, not to feel interesting if there's someone behind you making motions while you're asking any questions or testifying. With that, welcome Representative Conrad. House Bill 48, the floor is yours.
Chairman Zwanitzer, members of the committee, it's a privilege to be here in front of you today with a bill that essentially just renames an account that I find is very antiquated, and more important, doesn't really reflect the values that at least I have, and I believe you share as well, as it relates to our most valuable asset, and that's our posterity and our children. In front of you is House Bill 48, and as you can see, it's just renaming the deaf, dumb, and blind account to a more appropriate, considerate name, specifically the deaf, hard of hearing, and visually impaired account. It replaces, or more importantly, removes 2 words and adds 3 for a net cost of 1 word within the Green Book. I think that you would all agree that this reference to dumb is uncharacteristic of our children who, for example, have cochlear implants, or more importantly, hard of hearing, that have turned out to be extremely professional, but most importantly, successful in their adult lives. So I would ask for your favorable consideration with respect to the time that you do have to favorably consider changing this account from the deaf, dumb, and blind account to, most importantly, the deaf, hard of hearing, blind, and visually impaired account. And for that, I stand by for any questions.
Any questions for Representative Conrad? Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with your new name, it doesn't capture people who can't speak, I don't think, because that is what the definition of dumb in this case is. It doesn't mean a not very smart person. It means a person who can't speak. So how does the new name capture the people who can't speak?
Representative Conrad.
Thank you, Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman Zwanitzer and Representative Ward. Yeah, it is a name change, and specifically, how do we address that? I would offer a simple amendment if we can capture that to your satisfaction. I just find it, for lack of a better word from my own vocabulary, it's offensive to utilize dumb in 2024.
Representative Ward, follow up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Conrad, I can appreciate what you're saying, but that's not what it means in this case. We're not using it a pejorative here. The word means unable to speak.
Would you agree, Representative Conrad?
Chairman Zwanitzer, and Representative Ward, thank you. In the context as we speak today, no, I find it does not capture those who cannot speak. We can go through and look at our English language and look at example gay, or there's many other words that don't really reflect the semantics that we have today. So it's really a potato or a potato spelling issue, but no, I guess I respectfully disagree that in 2024, dumb accurately reflects those who are hard of speaking and or hard of hearing. And I will share with you this, the overwhelming constituency within this framework, specifically Wyoming Hands and Voices, are overwhelmingly in favor of this because they don't think it accurately reflects, in this case, our civility this day. Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Clauston. Got it, Caldwell. I'm good now. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Representative
Chairman.
Clauston.
Representative Conrad, thanks for being here. If we leave out the word dumb, does that affect any of the funding and the programs for these people that have difficulty speaking?
Chairman Zwanitzer, Representative Clausen, absolutely not. Everything remains intact, everything is the same. In fact, what's interesting, just as an anecdote, the group that's in charge of this from a legislative perspective, more importantly within the budgetary, did not even know that this count even existed as it's labeled today. So specifically your question, no, sir, it does not impact monetarily any impact for those recipients.
Any other questions? I'm apparently not a co-host on the Zoom, but if you would let in, I think you've let in Ms. Kroll, if you'd let in Ms. LeBeau as well. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this bill? Again, limited time, so we'd ask you to be quick. If you are, seeing no one jumping up in the audience to testify on House Bill 48, we do have some people online. Ms. Kroll is signing, and then we're going to let Ms. LeBeau in. Give it about 4 seconds. I think you may have promoted the wrong person, but give us a second. We'll promote Ms. LeBeau again. There we go. All right. With that, welcome, Patricia. If you can hear us, the floor is yours to testify on this bill.
Is everybody able to see me okay?
Yes, we are.
Yes, good to see everybody. My name is Patricia LeBeau, and I am joining first just to say thank you so much for all of the hard work for the deaf and blind community to make these changes. English and ASL are very different languages, so I hope that you were able to read that in the documentation that you were given. So through this bill, we're recognizing that really many people identify as certain identities and that those identities change over time. And the recommendation is to use a single term, dumb. I'm sorry, let the interpreter correct that. A single term of deaf, and that will encompass many different identities. It also recognizes many shared experiences within the deaf community and very different identities as well. You know, deaf, blind people that have multiple identities. So that is that's the recommendation. And then also the National Deaf Center, I provided a link that provides a lot of more information about this and how they support that deaf is the appropriate term to represent a diverse community. Additionally, with blind, similarly, that the simple term of blind encompasses a wide variety of differences within the community. And that represents people from all over as well. We provided a link as well for resources related to individuals who are blind. And I have a brother who is hearing but is blind. And I have another sibling who is a deaf and has vision. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you for being here. Are there any questions from the committee? Not seeing any questions, but we certainly appreciate your time and your testimony and the links you provided. And I believe this will go rather quick, hopefully. Thank you again. Is there any other further testimony online on this bill?
Yes.
Or any? Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you for providing the interpreter as well.
Thank you for being here as well, Ms. Kroll. We appreciate it. Any other testimony? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Committee, what is your pleasure on House Bill 48?
Move the bill.
Moved by Chadwick,
Second.
seconded by Yin. Any discussion, amendments? Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll make one quick amendment, which is just to make it effective immediately. I don't think there's any rulemaking or anything else. So it just seems simple enough to just make it effective once it's signed by the governor.
Second.
Seconded by Chadwick. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment carries. Any further discussion or amendments? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to the committee and Representative Conrad, striking page 2, line 4, we've stricken dumb and. Thoughts of adding nonverbal.
Representative Conrad, thoughts on that amendment to your bill?
Chairman Zwanitzer, Representative Clausen, I believe that's a friendly amendment that I would graciously accept.
Is there a second on that amendment, committee? Second by Chadwick. Can you read that for us one more time, Representative Clouston?
Yep, so page 2, line 4, the amendment would be, it would read, after deaf, we would add nonverbal, comma, and then it would say hard of hearing, blind, and visually impaired. So,
Any discussion, committee? Seeing none, all in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed, say no. That amendment is carried. Further amendments, discussion, committee? Seeing none and hearing someone call the question. Representative Hornock, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I can, as a guy who's lost without my hearing aids, almost, I just want to say that this is an interesting bill, but I think that there is a little bit of a confusion with the type of disability, type of people that we're talking about. And, you know, I Googled the word deaf, or I'm sorry, I Googled the word dumb, and the first 2 definitions on Google dealt with somebody who can't speak. And it wasn't until the last definition on Google that it deals with the pejorative. And so I think it's still common vernacular to use the term dumb as in reference to somebody who can't speak. And this deals with a fund that we set up, and I don't know that there's, I wonder, I didn't have time to look it up, but I wonder if there is a correlation between the deaf, dumb, and blind and receiving some federal funds as well within that language framework. So I don't really see the necessity of changing this language. I know that all of us in junior high were probably, used the term or called the term for a pejorative nature, but it does not really constitute what the word really means. And we all know that now as adults. So I just don't really see the need for changing this in state statute. Thanks.
Further discussion from the committee? Seeing none, and welcome back, Representative Penn. Question being called, we did do 2 amendments, one on the effective date and one adding the term nonverbal. All right, with that, Barb, if you'd call the roll on House Bill 48.
Representative Chadwick. Representative Clouston.
Aye.
Representative Hornock.
No.
Representative O'Hearn.
Aye.
Representative Penn.
Aye.
Representative Trujillo.
Aye.
Representative Ward.
No.
Representative Yin. Chairman Zwanitzer.
Aye.
7 aye, 2 no.
Thank you. Representative Conrad, you're carrying this on the floor? Yes, sir. Okay, have a great day. Thank you for being quick. All right, committee, again, we have about 30 minutes, and we can certainly carry it over should we need to hear House Bill 143, the practice of behavior analyst and technician family members, brought to us by Chairman Olson. Welcome, Chairman Olson. And just so the committee knows, after Chairman Olson's testimony, there are some people who can't come back at lunch, so we may hear from them first. Not quite the proper order of operations, but we want to make sure we get all the comments we can on this bill. With that, Chairman Olson, welcome. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It has been a while since I have been in front of Labor Health. I think it was before you were the chairman, back when Chairman Wilson was chairing Health was the last time I appeared before this committee. So appreciate the opportunity. I bring you House Bill 143, Practice of Behavioral Analysts, Technician Family Members. So what this bill does, if you remember from introduction, is it bridges the gap for autism treatment in Wyoming. It's a much needed therapy. It's called ABA therapy. And that therapy is provided to an autistic child through a person who is certified as what's called a behavioral technician. And the ratio, I just passed out a sheet to all of you. You can see some Wyoming numbers. There's about somewhere between 3,750 and 5,000 known autistic children in Wyoming. And so the ratio of children needing therapy services to behavioral technicians is approximately 1 to 35. For every 35 children, there's a therapist available for them. So what this bill does is it attempts to bridge that gap. And it simply allows family members or caregivers to serve as a behavioral technician for their own child. This is especially effective and especially needed in rural areas in Wyoming where you're not going to see a behavioral therapist, behavioral technician, excuse me, and your only option might be telemedicine. And then even then, the wait lists are through the roof for these families. So what this bill really does is it deals with a situation where a parent is literally backed into the corner and they have an autistic child. It's really critical that they get them therapy, especially in the early years when they're developing. It's critical that ABA therapy be introduced for the success of that child building social emotional skills. They're backed into a corner. They can't get a therapist. This is a scenario where they could themselves become a behavioral technician by going through training. They would go through, there's a company called Forta that would provide them with 50 hours of free training as an example. And then they're supervised is the other aspect that I didn't mention. But once they've been trained, they're then supervised by a behavioral analyst. So it empowers parents to take an active role in their child's life when there is no other option available to them. You might ask, what exactly is a behavioral technician? And I think it's important to talk about what they are so that because you're probably going to hear testimony about psychiatrists and psychologists and other really high-end professionals. And that's not a really good comparison to what we're talking about, because you're probably going to hear that a psychiatrist or a psychologist can't provide therapy to their own children. And it's an unethical situation, and that's true. But a behavioral technician is just a paraprofessional. So what I like to think about is a teacher. So you might have a classroom with a certified teacher, and then they'll have a paraprofessional assisting them to provide day-to-day services to the children. You could certainly teach your own child. There's no ethical issue with that. You may not want to teach your own child, but as a teacher, you could do that. So I think that's a really good comparison, because what behavioral technicians do is they literally provide day-to-day skill building for autistic children when they're dealing with emotional and social issues. And then they provide basic therapy, making good choices, positive consequences for good choices, negative consequences for bad choices, things that parents can simply engage in. So that's the bill. In closing, I will say, what brought me to this bill is that I have an autistic child. My child, thankfully, is very high functioning. And so the need for this therapy is pretty limited in my life. But my hope is we still see a lot of the struggles that other parents see. And so my hope is that this bill can help other parents who might need the services and can't get them. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would take any questions.
Questions for Chairman Olson? Representative Trujillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Olson, with these, and once a parent or a sibling, let's say an older sibling, gets trained and becomes a tech, are they then able to maybe help their neighbor? You know how we have home health aides, CNAs that do home health care. Would these, once they're trained, be able to, help their neighbor?
Chairman Olson, if you know.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that question until now. I'm looking at the bill. I think they could, because what we do in the bill is we go into the definition of basically what is a behavioral technician, and we say that it can be a family member it can be a caregiver. So it's designed to specifically allow you to provide the technician services to your own child. Actually, I'm not certain of that. I'm not going to say that they can provide it to their neighbor because, again, the purpose of the change in that definition is to their own child. They won't be a certified behavioral technician. So a certified behavioral technician could provide services to any child. So I'm going to say, no, I don't think they could unless they got the full certification.
And we'll have some more testimony.
And maybe somebody else can better answer that than me.
Other questions, Representative Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, you mentioned the conflict issue. And so my question to you is, because I think some other folks might bring that up as a big issue. Would you consider it friendly to let the parents practice without getting paid or a small stipend so that it eliminates that conflict issue?
So
Chairman Olson, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, Representative Ward. So we're clear on what they would get under this system. They would get a very small stipend. It's approximately $12 an hour, and they would provide services for approximately 20 hours per week. So it is a relatively small stipend. I don't think there's a conflict of interest. I think that might exist in the psychologist and psychiatrist world. That's why I give you the example of the teacher. You know, they can provide teaching services to their own child, and I think that's a lot more. This is not a psychologist. This is just a paraprofessional. So it would be similar to saying, yeah, the paraprofessional in your kid's kindergarten class can't actually work with your child and develop basic skills with your child. So I don't think there's a conflict of interest. So I don't know that I would be open to that amendment, because I think that what happens in a lot of scenarios is that the parent actually probably leaves their job in order to provide, because 20 hours is half of a work week, right? So a parent leaves their job to try to provide care for their kiddo, and even $12 an hour is not very much at all. So I think that little stipend is probably necessary for some families to just make ends meet.
Okay, further questions for Chairman Olson? Representative Penn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple questions. So I'm on this bill and, initially doing my research,
Thank you, by the way.
Chairman Olson?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I support the concept. I want to make sure, though, that we don't also create other issues. So one of the concerns that I had brought up to me by someone who has this type of an issue within their family is, one, the word caregiver in here. And it looks like that's actually already in statute. It's the family member portion that we're adding to statute. The concern was the word caregiver opens that up to potentially a lot of people. Could that mean that a teacher is involved in this, or anyone that gets to be considered a caregiver? Can you speak to that? Do you know what I'm?
Chairman Olson, if you don't.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Penn, I can. And the idea was to try to, in thought, what we were thinking about was like a guardian, a person who has a guardianship over a child. Might be a grandma, might be an aunt, might be an uncle, might be a brother or a sister. They would also be a family member, might be a non-family member guardian, and in the non-member family member guardian, we tried to capture them. Honestly, the meat of the statute change is family member. So if you felt so inclined, or this committee felt so inclined to take the caregiver portion out, I would have no heartburn whatsoever. I think the critical part is getting a family member into the definition. I do agree that the caregiver could raise some issues because it could potentially be a daycare provider as an example. Yeah.
Okay, follow-up?
Thank you. Another question, I just had the thought as we were going through this, you said that the company Forta will be coming in and providing 50 hours of free training. And I guess my thought is where this company is not coming in out of the goodness of their hearts to provide a free service. And so I'm just wondering where the positives are for that company as far as, what are they getting out of it?
Chairman Olson, if you wish to comment.
Mr.
they're
Chairman,
certainly here.
I'll actually punt that one because the company is here today, and I think that they would be best to answer why they're particularly interested in this bill.
Reverend Clauston?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I guess my first question was actually similar. This is a publicly traded company, and I guess my antennas have been kind of up on this whole bill, paying family members. How do they get paid? What the whole finance part of the whole thing I find interesting. So I guess I'll need some answers there. The other thing is, one of the good things I think that came out of COVID is our ability to do telehealth. Right now, I might feel a little bit better having telehealth services provided to this population that I'm very close to. So I
Looking
just,
for a question, Reverend
yeah.
Clauston. You got one?
So
Okay.
the question would be is how do we use telehealth maybe instead of this model?
Chairman Olson, if you want that.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Clauston, I would submit to you that you shouldn't take options off the table. You should just make sure that all the tools are in the tool belt for the parent. Telehealth certainly might be available, but as you're familiar with these other bills that are passing through our chamber on broadband, when you live in a larger city like Gillette or Cheyenne, you have access to internet. But when you live in a small community of a couple hundred people, which is the rural communities that we're really talking about in Wyoming, they may not have great access to broadband and to telemedicine, not at the same level as you and I might have in our city. So I would like to fix that problem too. That's a different problem, but I think you should leave all the tools in the tool belt for the family, for the children.
Other questions for Chairman Olson? Not seeing any right now, Chairman Olson.
All right.
Thank you. And you're welcome to stay at the table if you want. Otherwise, we'll call up some people and see where we return. Anyone who can't come back at the lunch hour who needs to testify in the next 20 minutes. Welcome, Ms. Davis. Thank you for being here with us today.
Would prefer not to come back.
Yep, and just give us your name and who you're with, and the floor is yours.
All right, Mr. Chairman and committee members, thank you for hearing my testimony today. My name is Haley Davis. I attended the University of Wyoming. I have my degree in elementary and special education. I love raising my family of 5 boys here in Wyoming. In 2014, my husband and I decided to adopt our son from an orphanage in Bulgaria. My son has autism and Down syndrome. A lot of our friends thought we were a little bit crazy for adopting because at home we had our 4 little boys with the ages of 8, 6, 3, and 1. And here we're bringing home our 5th child, and he was 3 years old and had severe disabilities. In the orphanage, my son spent the first 3 years of his life sitting in a crib. He had no social interactions. He had no therapies and no support. He was far behind. And so when we finally got him home, he was behind emotionally, socially, physically. He really did learn, I think, in the crib to learn to gnaw on the side of wood things and would let out the whole world. So to even comment on the telecommunication, my son couldn't look at a computer. He needed somebody there with him, just to kind of go into my thoughts on that. I was committed to doing anything and everything for my son to get him up to speed, and I did that. I ran him to developmental preschools. I ran him to physical therapies, occupational therapies. I ran him to doctor's appointments, the Down syndrome clinics and autistic clinics down in Denver. I dragged my 5 little boys with me to every one of these appointments. I would have done anything. I started looking into and I got really excited when I found some information on ABA therapy. And I really thought this intensive therapy was going to be the answer for my son. But as I started looking and as I was getting excited about this, I started asking a lot of questions, and maybe I was looking in all the wrong places, but it seemed every corner I turned, I couldn't find the help. I couldn't find the therapists. When I started looking at the time commitment on this, to have him going into a therapist for 10 hours, 10 to 40 hours a week, I felt defeated. Being able to think about being able to provide that in my home around our own schedule seemed more doable. But to drag my 5 kids into all of that seemed overwhelming, even if there was the option for me to do it. As I started asking these questions, my excitement began to fade, and there didn't seem to be any options for my son. And so I eventually just had to let that, this idea of having ABA therapy for my son go away. I want you to fast forward now 9 years where I am today. Since we've adopted my son is 12 years old. This year has been the most challenging year I've had with my son. I get calls and I get texts often about him hitting, kicking, scratching. I got the call that he smacked a kid and left marks on him. The bus drivers give you updates every day telling them that they hit him in the face. He's kicking the seats and scratching them. At church, he's hitting kids. As a mom, as you can tell, it's heartbreaking. I didn't understand how heartbreaking it could be when I would hear other people's stories. Because you hurt. You hurt because there's no answers. You hurt because your child hurt somebody else, and you can't really even tell them what they're doing is wrong. You can't, so you hurt for them. You hurt that maybe these people don't even want to work with your son anymore. I've spent hours and hours in my son's classroom. With my special ed background, I thought, I can go in, I can help him figure this out and try and modify his behaviors, and we haven't been able to figure out anything. I've brought him to doctors this year. We have him on medications, and yet nothing has seemed to work for my son. So I'm left to wonder what would have happened if I would have had this option, if I would have been able to have ABA therapy for my son when we adopted him at 3. The younger you get this therapy, the better it is for you. And maybe it would have worked for him, maybe it wouldn't have, but I didn't have the option to do so as a parent, to have that option. So when I heard about this bill, I became excited. I found maybe a little glimpse of hope for my son, that maybe we can still get him the help that he needs. And how exciting is that as a parent, to be empowered with the tools and knowledge to be able to help your son. I think this is not just exciting for me, but this has got to be exciting for the parents across Wyoming who are also struggling, trying to find this therapy for their children. I want to thank you for your time, and I stand for any questions.
Questions for Ms. Davis? Steny, any much yes? I do believe we have a person, Mr. Mike. Yep, whoever, come on down, and then I think we have maybe one person on the line who'd like to testify before 9:45. With that, welcome to Labor Health Social Services. I guess we'll start with Mr. Michaeli, go from there.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, my name is Matt Michaeli. I'm here representing Forda. Full disclosure, Haley is my sister, and Bo is my nephew, and I've shared those experiences with her. I agreed to help Forda in this process because I've witnessed firsthand what happens and how families go through this. I think as I've worked on this and talked to people and looked at a few things that become clear to me is that, one, there is a crisis in the state, that we have children that need help, they can't get it. 2, this is a potential solution. Parents have the most incentive to get the training to do this and to give their kids the help that they need. And number 3, there is some ambiguity right now in the law. You're going to hear today some ambiguity of this multi-relationship if there's a conflict where a parent is also the caregiver. Forda is a company, and you'll hear from them here in a second, that is a for-profit company, but that's how capitalism works, right? You see a problem, you figure out a way to try to solve it, and You come in, and I don't care if it's Florida or anybody, I care about kids in this state that need help, and I want to try to help them get that. So there is a crisis. I haven't heard anybody dispute that. This is a tool, a potential way to get it done. There is some ambiguity that we're trying to clear up, and so that's why we're here today. With that, I'll introduce Shobhan Thatcher, who works for Florida, and he can answer the questions that you guys have brought up and kind of explain their process and why they're here and what they're trying to do.
Welcome. Floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for your time today. My name's Shobhan, employee of Forta. I've heard some great questions. I kind of had an idea of what I was going to talk through, but I think the best thing I would like to do is try to address some of your questions that you guys have first, if that's okay. So I think one of the questions was related to telehealth and how that works, and if that's an option. Telehealth is an option for children as they're older. If you're younger, sub 5, it's really hard to have someone who is in a virtual setting talk to someone and ask someone to do stuff in a setting. That's why you usually have a physical person in that setting. So as you get older, telehealth does become an option. It depends on also the severity of it. But again, I would like to say what we are providing here to a parent is an option. We're not forcing a parent to do this. Parents, as you just heard from Haley, there are many parents that are just lost, and they're looking for something, and they come saying, hey, can I do this? I've gone on a long wait list. It's been 6 months, and I'm still not moving. I got to drive 2 hours a day to get to a therapist. I have most of the children that are in this, that have been kind of diagnosed with autism, have other diagnoses also, so they're trying to do numerous therapies at the same time. They have family members they're trying to take care of. Imagine being the kid who is 5 who doesn't appreciate that there's a 2-year-old in the family that has autism and dad can't and mom can't make games. So we're trying to provide this as an option. We're not forcing this. We're not saying to a parent, you have to do this. We're not telling anyone they have to do this. It's just an option for them, just like telehealth would be as they get older. So that's one of the questions around the telehealth side. The other side of this, I think there's a question related to, can this help others, like the neighbor? Yes, if you get trained, you're able to provide this to someone else. It is really up to you. And what we have seen is that there are parents that come into our program. Not only do they get trained and do it to their own children, they want to become the analyst. They want to go get there. We have teachers who go, this is now my calling. I've come to appreciate that this may be where I can spend my time. So that was another question that came up. Another just clarification point, minor, we're not a public company. We are for profit, but we're not public. So if someone goes to find us publicly, we're not there. So I just want to clarify that as a minor clarification point. I think there was one other question about stipend and stuff, and I think our kind of approach to this is, listen, a person can do this and go to their neighbor and get paid to do it. Yet on their own child, they're providing the same therapy with the same supervision, and you're saying no. It seems like it's a very hard kind of pill for someone to appreciate, especially if you're a parent who's like, wait, I got to go do this for some other child. But if I do it for my own child, there's all these obstacles that are coming up. So our approach is, listen, we pay you the $12 an hour, $13 an hour, and we hope that that is what is enough for you to kind of give up your career, give up whatever else you have going, because you feel that this is the best approach for your child and your family. And that alone kind of is where we have said this works. This is pretty consistent with the pay that a tech would get in the open market. If you kind of look at how the open market works for techs, there's someone will say techs get paid $16, $20 an hour. But what they won't say in that is like techs don't get paid for drive time. So if you have to drive 2 hours to go to someone's house to do services, a lot of centers won't pay for that. So when you average it all out, it comes out to be around 12 to 13 an hour, which is what we pay our parents. So those are the questions. I think I answered them. If I missed any, I'm happy to kind of go back, and if you guys will allow me, I'm happy to go through the rest of my testimony.
Any immediate questions? Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this might also be a question for Chairman Olson. Would you consider it friendly? So we continue to pay the parent, but we add, say, a sentence that says the parent does not have authority over the regular therapist and vice versa. I believe that would eliminate the conflict. So still, we could pay them, but the parent doesn't have authority over the normally employed therapist and vice versa. Would that be considered friendly?
Thoughts on that, Mr. Thakar? How you say it?
Yeah, the car, yeah. Can I? Yeah, I think, just to be clear, I think that's friendly, and the reason just to be clear, the analyst who's on top supervises the parent and that they're the tech. And that analyst, independent, you'll hear from one of our analysts, there's other analysts that out there, and they make the clinical protocol of what the parent's doing. So I think what you're saying is correct. In our situation, if a parent started to question what the therapist kind of professional or the analyst professional opinions were, I think we would say, hey, that's not how this works. The analyst makes the protocol, which is what we do, and the parent provides the services on that protocol, and the supervisor supervises them. So yes, I think that would be fine.
Other immediate yeah, Mr. Michael.
Just to put maybe a slightly finer point on that is, I mean, it's a friendly amendment because it's already the way the law works, right? Every parent who becomes qualified that does this will work under a licensed analyst, and that licensed analyst is the person that's given the care under the supervision, and you'll hear more about how that works, but they already have to work under a licensed analyst who's not the parent, is not the parent. So they're two separate things.
So I like the clarification.
Yeah.
To me, that
That's
just
fine.
clarifies it even better, so.
So quick question, is it a national certification to be an analyst, or is it a state level? Do they have to be licensed in Wyoming, or we have reciprocity? Just give me a quick 30 seconds on that.
You have a state level licensure that occurs, and that's, yeah.
So anyone practicing in Wyoming would have to have someone with state licensure in Wyoming over there?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other, yeah, Representative Hornock.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So just a question about the payment structure. I think that was kind of talked about earlier, and am I getting this right? So this is essentially services paid through insurance. So technically, the parent goes through the free training that you guys offer and becomes certified. They work underneath of a higher certificate,
yeah.
whatever the term is, higher certification. And that's through your company. And then essentially that service that's being provided is billed to the parent's insurance, and the payment goes to you guys, and then it trickles down back to the parent, where you're essentially then paying the parent that $12 or so an hour.
Yeah, so on a high level, well, thank you, Representative, for the question. And on a high level, yes, that the process is that the parent is employed by us. They get paid for the hours that they work, whether they're billable or not. It's just a typical employee relationship. And we bill the payer. We disclose our model to all the payers in our billing, say this is our model. And we have payers that pay us, and we go through the model, and we know that there's probably payers that are gonna state, they have concerns and stuff. We disclose a model to them, and we kind of have to fight that battle with payers when that battle comes with us, right? We just know that that's not what we're here for.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just add on to that, I think it's also important, nothing in this bill changes relationship with insurance companies, right? What it does is it does provide clarity on the law, which I think gives clarity in those discussions. So it gives clarity to analysts who are licensed that they can work with parents, that's okay. And then it gives clarity when you're having discussions. Insurance companies can write whatever policy coverages they want. Ford is in those discussions with them, and I think this gives some clarity on those discussions.
Yeah.
Of Wyoming has made a policy decision, the parents can provide this type of help to their kids.
Any further questions? Representative Yeh in the next 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Are there any other states that have similar language to this?
Mr. Michael, Mr. Thakar, if you know.
Yeah, regarding to this current amendment, right? We have other states that we're working with now to try to start passing these. And again, it's just the ambiguity that's kind of come up because of, as we started to grow, we've started to see that, there's questions around how this works. And so we've now started to address it head on, because that's the only way we can do it. So.
Further questions? Not seeing it, Representative Hornock.
So, another question, if I can kind of figure out how to frame it. Why is it that we need this clarification in state statute? If the parent is, in any way, gets that 50 hours of training and they're considered certified and they work underneath these individuals, can they just go ahead and provide that service automatically right now without adding this to state statute?
Yeah, I think, Chairman, Representative Hornock, thank you so much. The question, I think it's a good question. Again, there's ambiguity, and that ambiguity leads to certain things where you have the analysts on top who are oftentimes trying to figure out, hey, can they do this within their realms of supervising the parent and allowing the parent to continue to get the correct thing. The 50-hour training is something that any parent can do anywhere, and you can go on YouTube and you can try to find out how to do this, right? But if you want the proper kind of supervision on top with an analyst who is continuously modifying and all that, we're trying to add clarity into this. We're trying to add clarity to the language to allow all of these things to make sure that we, in this state and in other states, that this is exactly kind of an approach that makes sense. And so that's where we're going with it.
Okay, with that, one more question from the class, and we're going to have to go back to the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, we were given some information that this Florida model, I just want to see if this is true, and if it is true, why not? South Dakota and Nevada are not allowing this model in their states. Is that true? And if it is true, why are they not allowing this model?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Clausen. I would have to go, in all honesty, go back and see where states we're in and we're not. Like, for example, I'll say we do not do TRICARE. TRICARE has specific language in their rules that say telehealth supervision is not permitted, period. Not the actual technician side of it, but the supervision side of it. So if there's a language in a statute or language in one of their guidances that we just don't feel comfortable, we just say, hey, we won't go into it for now because we don't want to be, that doesn't make sense. So that's probably what it is. I would have to go and specifically look and see if there's specific language that we were concerned with that made it harder for us to decide to go into that state for now.
Okay. With that, committee, we're going to recess till the lunch hour. I'm not sure which one of these 6 rooms it's going to be in, but I'll announce it on the floor, but it'll be in one of these 6 committee rooms at lunch to hear further testimony. If you can't be here in person, certainly allow you to Zoom in as well. And you're always welcome to email the committee or come talk to us while we're in session for the next couple hours. With that, we are recessed until the lunch hour.